Thank you. Hello, everybody.
Hi.
In person, online. Thank you. So first, I want to conclude what we started yesterday, and then we'll go on to a new subject, especially that we have students from the other classroom. So yesterday we spoke about the spiritual significance of the splitting of the sea. So we're just going to go over it briefly again. Maybe we'll do it on the board this time. We explained yesterday that it's known that when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, that was just one part of the process, leaving Egypt, leaving a place of negativity. The second part was to become connected to Hashem. So going out of Mitzrayim was letting go of the negative. Standing at Har Sinai is embracing the positive, which is Hashem. So they first had to do step one before you do step two. So we find that initially in Chumash Shmos, in Parsha Shmos, when Hashem told Moshe that the Jews will go out of Mitzrayim, it adds these words, and they're going out of Egypt, and when they come out, they'll be standing by this mountain, and they will serve Hashem. So Hashem already told them the whole purpose of going out is to receive the Torah. Now, this is another discussion, which will go into more detail when Shavuos comes around, but generally speaking, from Parshas Yisro and from other areas, everyone is probably aware that receiving the Torah wasn't just receiving a set of rules. Like, this is the Constitution of the United States of America, and this is the Constitution of the Jewish nation. It's much deeper than that. Of course, these are rules and laws, what we must do, what we're not allowed to do, what we could do. But deeper than that, when Hashem gave the Torah, what really changed was that Hashem revealed his presence down here on earth for the first time since the world was created. And now, when we do mitzvahs, whether it's tzedakah, whether it's tefillin, whether it's mezuzah, whether it's matzah, lulav, esrog, shofar, any mitzvah, we draw down godliness in this world. So the way it's explained in Chassidus is that the highest of the four worlds, the fourth world, we'll say, is Atzilus. And then after that are the lower worlds, which is Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. And between these two worlds, there's, I showed you the chart yesterday, let's call it a curtain. Meaning to say the light of this world is so powerful, is so infinite, is so spiritual. If that light would shine in this world, then the world couldn't exist. It's like a person should be in a place where there's a blinding light. Or a more refined example is if a teacher teaches a student, but teaches a student with all the depth, the way they know it, the student will be overwhelmed and confused, or not even confused, just wouldn't get it. So there has to be what we call Symptom, Contraction, Concealment, and has to be hidden, and that's this curtain. And if you remember from learning about the Beis Hamikdash, the Beis Hamikdash had four compartments, right? And that corresponds to the four worlds. And between the Holy of Holies and the other three, what was there? Curtain. What was it called? Anyone know what it was called, the curtain? Parochas, right. In fact, in the shul, that curtain that hangs in front of the Aron is also called Parochas for the same reason. Because in the Holy of Holies, there was the Aron with the Torah, and outside was a curtain. What was the purpose of the curtain? Because that's really a manifestation and a reflection of the curtain up there. There's a curtain between this world and these three, and that fullness so powerful, so infinite, so intense, that it would be impossible to survive. When Hashem gave the Torah, what did he do? He did just that. He took the light from this world and said, now the time has come that this light will come down to these worlds. So before he did that, what did he do? He had to open the curtain.
Wait, so before, like Matzah and Torah, like those.
Before Matan Torah, the world wasn't able and wasn't capable of receiving and absorbing this light.
But what about all the miracles and all the tzaddikim and forefathers? Like, that they seem to.
So if you remember, not that long ago, we learned Basi Lagani, and over it explains that Avraham Avinu brought godliness down to the first heaven, the second heaven, to the third heaven. In other words, it was brought down, but didn't really penetrate down to earth. So after the Torah was given, this opened up, and now the light from here can come down to this world, and that's what happened by Matan Torah. Yeah.
When we talk about opening the faucets of brachos during Yesh's house, for example, is it the same opening the curtain? Or is it like, I don't know, there's so many analogies for like how it has gone down.
Yes, whenever we talk about opening the curtains, because the truth is there are many, curtain means really Symptom. It's a metaphor for Symptom. And there are many levels and places. Yes, whenever you hear that metaphor, it's the same concept. The principle is the same. Something is blocking for a good reason, because the light is just too intense or too strong, too high. And opening the curtain is allowing that light that previously was not able to come through, and now it could come through. So in a sense, what happened when the sea split was a process that enabled this to happen. The fact that, remember we said yesterday, the sea represents concealment, because everything that's in the water exists, but it's hidden, it's concealed, you can't see it. You don't see the diamond, you don't see the pearls, you don't see the fish, you don't see the vegetables. Everything that exists on land exists in the sea, but you don't see it, it's all hidden. So when the sea opened up, it means that whatever is blocking up there opened up. And if you remember, I mentioned yesterday that one of the miracles that happened was not only did the sea split where they were walking, every sea in the world and every ocean in the world and every body of water in the world, lakes, they all split. Why? Because it wasn't just here, all the way down from Atzilus, all the worlds, that curtains had to open and allow this higher light to come through.
So when this high light will come through, it's still like a strong light, right? What's happening?
It's a strong light, but after what Chana Bina said, after Avraham Avinu and Yitzchak and Yaakov and the Shvatim and all the mitzvahs and Noach, they prepared the world that now this light, which the world couldn't handle before, now they can handle it. So it's like a person, use the other analogy, who is standing in front of a brilliant scholar, and he starts explaining things, and I don't understand a word you're saying. He says, take 6 months, study this book, study that sefer, study the other sefer, then come back to me. Now he comes back. Oh, now it makes sense. What happened? Now that he's more prepared, he has more knowledge, and he knows what it's all about. So when he speaks words of Torah, it penetrates. Same idea. But the question is, if this already happened, then why is the sea going to split again when Mashiach comes? It's already done. The curtains are all opened up. The light from Atzilus already came to this place. So why do we need, when Mashiach comes again, the curtains to open up?
Because we know how it look in a concealed way. Like we have it, but not like completely revealed. When Mashiach comes, it will actually completely.
So we're going to open these curtains a little bit wider.
Yeah.
That's what I also thought. But then I found out, no, there's a deeper explanation. And what is it? When Mashiach comes, something more is going to happen than what happened when the Torah was given. How do I know? Very simple. Look at the results. The Torah was given, but we still have a Golus. We still have a Yetzirah. People are still sick. We still have illness and death. We still have nations of the world that are persecuting us. And we still have Klippa floating around. And when Mashiach comes, all these things will be gone. So it must be that when Mashiach comes, a higher level of godliness that wasn't revealed before is now going to be revealed. So in Chassidus it says there's something higher than Atzilus, and that is the next level, which is Keser, right? Please don't do this to me. Okay, Keser. And there's a curtain here between Keser and this world now, that the light from Keser can go to Atzilus openly because it's too bright. So there's another curtain here. When Mashiach is going to come, this curtain is going to open up. And as a result of that, there's going to be new light coming into Atzilus and eventually down to here, which was never here before. So a new river is going to open up, which means up there, a new level of curtains will open up, a new concealment will be removed, and the world will be filled with such light of Hashem that it never had. And as a result of the new light, there'll be no more Yetzer Hara, no more Klippa, no more fighting, no more wars, no more all the things that we're suffering with today. It will be only goodness and godliness in abundance.
Rabbi,
Yes.
how come how come the Torah was
Because Atzilus is pretty high up there.
that the Torah is Hashem's Ratzon? Why
Well,
not Atzilus?
Very good question. That's true. Very good question. But the truth is that in Atzilus, it has Hashem's Kes. Everything is there, except the higher levels are more contained in it. They're not as revealed. And when I say this is going to come through, it means it'll be the higher levels will be more revealed. But yes, everything is contained in Atzilus, but in Atzilus, it's what you feel is more the level of Atzilus, not the higher levels. And then we'll see even higher levels. There's one more thing about this I'm going to explain, and then we'll go to the next subject. And that is how this idea of splitting the sea can also is understood on a personal level. Remember, we said that the sea and the dry land represent the hidden worlds and the revealed worlds. In each one of us is also a hidden world and revealed world. Yesterday I said it was thought and speech, but there's something deeper than that. And what is it? Remember, we learned before that in the Mimer, and those of you in the other class, probably it came up in classes, is that there are two realms, two dimensions to the soul. There's a hidden dimension and there's a revealed dimension. Without going into all the details, we know there's much more spirituality and godliness to our soul than what we feel. In fact, there are people that feel absolutely nothing. They feel nothing. They might even feel negative towards Torah, towards mitzvahs, towards Hashem. But deep down in their soul, there's a level in their neshama which is no different than Moshe Rabbeinu. The deepest depth of the soul has an unconditional bond with Hashem, but it's hidden. And we don't feel it. We're not conscious of it. Otherwise, we'd all be tzaddikim like Moshe Rabbeinu. So even though we have it, but we're not conscious of it. But somehow from the unconscious, it does send certain signals and it has a certain effect on us, but some more and some less. Depends on the tower of the signals, how good it's built. But when we say the sea will split, it means as follows. Normally, the hidden worlds are hidden and what we're conscious of is revealed. When the sea split, besides the fact that in the spiritual realm, that which is hidden became revealed, personally, it means that the hidden part of my neshama, which is normally hidden, when the sea splits, that's when it becomes more revealed, and I can feel consciously things that are coming from that hidden realm and hidden layer of depth of my neshama. So the sea of my neshama is the hidden part of the neshama. The dry land of my neshama is what I'm conscious of, what I feel consciously. And when the sea splits, it gives us the power that we're able to experience and feel the effects much more of the hidden part of the neshama on the conscious part of the neshama. And one of the areas where it affects us mainly is in Emunah. That's why Pesach is a Yantov that gives us strength in Emunah. Are you aware that there's one day in Pesach specifically that we celebrate the splitting of the sea? Which day is that? The first day, the second day,
The last day.
the eighth day?
should be the
Seventh day, right. The seventh day, in fact, that's what the Torah reading is about, because when the Jews went out of Egypt, that's when it happened. So specifically, it's on the seventh day, but generally, of course, it relates to the whole Pesach, because it's part of the
The
process.
whole week after they left, it happened.
Yeah, they traveled for 7 days, and on the seventh day, that's when the sea split.
Doesn't it say that they traveled for 3 days?
yeah 3 days.
What?
3 days they were walking on the desert.
Right, but they didn't get to the splitting of the sea part until 7 days later.
Oh, so they canceled one time.
Okay, so let's go to another part now, and I'll talk about it without you having to look in the booklets, because not everybody has the booklets. And that is, and those of you that are sitting there, someone with the booklet, maybe you can look in. There's not a lot inside, it's more on the outside. Before I continue, I just want to make sure everybody here sold their chametz. If not, I still have the papers. The second thing is Rabbi Gasinski asked me to reiterate, and he feels that some people maybe misunderstood him, and that is that you'd burn the chametz on Friday, and there's a special prayer that we say on Friday when we burn the chametz. And you don't have to leave pieces of challah over the Shabbos. You don't have to. But the actual process of burning it and the yiratzah, we say on Friday. Some people thought he said differently. Okay, so now I want to talk about the last day of Pesach, not the 7th, but the 8th. Mashallah Barur. What?
לא, שאלתי על זה של החמץ.
You didn't sell it yet?
לא. זאת שגם יש לי כל כך חמץ, כאילו, אין...
So 2 questions. You have no כל כך, זה לא מספיק. You have a little bit of chametz?
אני לא מתכוונת להשאיר את זה לפסח.
You have nothing left. What about in Israel?
לא. לא השארתי...
There's nothing there. You get rid of all your chametz. Amazing. Before you come to Chon Yadish, you should get rid of all your chametz. Everybody should do that. Good. Yeah, if you don't have anything, you don't have to sell. True. Okay. So the last day of Pesach, it's interesting. Those who live in Israel don't have an 8th day. They only have 7 days. But those who live outside of Israel have 8 days of Pesach. So everything that I'm going to say now is about the 8th day. And in Israel, somehow the 8th and the 7th merge. So what we're saying now about the 8th will apply to the 7th. But here, the 2 separate days, 7th and the 8th.
The last day is the Yantov?
Last day is a Yantov, just like the first day and just like the 7th day. So this year, the last day is going to be on Sunday. Last 2 days is Shabbos and Sunday. So the last day has a name. It's called Achron Shel Pesach, which means the last day of Pesach. And there's 2 ways to interpret those words. One is chronologically, it's number 8, so it's the last day chronologically. The other is, it means it's in a sense the last day, that this day is the culmination of everything about Pesach. Everything about Pesach comes to its completion on this last day. So in Chabad, and the truth is in a lot of Hasidic circles, there's something special about this day, and that is, if you're looking at the booklet, it's on page 96. That is a custom that the Baal Shem Tov initiated and established. One of the differences between Shabbos and Yantov is how many meals they're supposed to eat on Shabbos
3.
and Yantov? 2. There's no obligation to eat a 3rd meal on Yantov. When it came to Pesach, the Baal Shem Tov instituted that towards the end of the day, after Mincha, we should wash a 3rd time, eat a meal, and he called this meal Mashiach Suda. It's Mashiach's meal. What does that mean? On a simple level, that means that this is a meal that is dedicated to our belief in Mashiach. In other words, Pesach is about redemption. But we spoke about this in the other classes, that the redemption is really one long continuation. It started over 3,300 years ago when we went out of Egypt, and it's going to be completed when we go out with Mashiach. So really, Pesach, we focus on both. In fact, both classes did the Haggadah. How does the Haggadah begin? It starts off like this. This year, we're here. Next year, we'll be in Israel. This year, we're slaves. Next year, we'll be... What does that mean? It means we're already talking about both things right at the onset of the Haggadah. First of all, this is the bread that our ancestors ate in Egypt. Second of all, we want to declare our faith that Hashem will take us out of Golus, and next year when Pesach comes around, we won't be in Golus, we'll be in redemption. So Pesach in general is about redemption from Egypt and the Amun in the future redemption. But the difference is the first days of Pesach, we're focusing primarily on redemption from Egypt. And the last days of Pesach, we're focusing more on the redemption with Mashiach. There's another thing we do with the first days that connect to Mashiach. What do we say when the whole Seder is over? What? The Shana Haba, Yerushalayim. Next year we'll be in Jerusalem. Also, what is the fifth cup about? Eliyahu Navi, because he's the one who's going to come to tell us the redemption is here. So we do talk about redemption, but the main focus, the first days, is about going out of Egypt. Let's remember. And the main focus, the last days, is about going out of this Golus. So the Suda is a meal that we sit down to eat, and we're dedicating this meal to focus on Hashem's promise that we're going out of Golus. But there's another thing, and this applies to all the Chassidim, and then I'll tell you what specifically in Chabad. All students who follow the Baal Shem Tov have a custom, first of all, that during Pesach, they don't eat matzah shruya. In Yiddish, it's called gebroks, and it means that the matzah shouldn't be allowed to become wet. So all the delicious, wonderful foods like delicacies like matzah brai and matzah balls and the soup, you're Chabad or you're a Chassid, you can't have that. You have something greater, but you can't have that because the matzah is not allowed to become wet. Even on the table, make sure to cover the matzah with plastic and not to eat matzah exposed because the water might get to it. And maybe there's a little concern. It's very, very, very unlikely that a little bit of matzah wasn't baked. By the way, I was in the matzah bakery. We all bake matzahs together. People bake matzahs in groups. So my job, me and Rabbi Greenberg, we're there together. Our job is to check the matzah, which means when the matzah comes out of the oven, you check to see was it baked properly. Sometimes you take the matzah, it doesn't break, it bends like a rubber band, which means it never really baked good, and we have to throw that out. Sometimes there's a big bubble in the matzah, and the bubble means that inside the fire didn't get to it and the dough never baked. So you don't throw out the whole matzah, you break off that bubble and you throw it out. So generally speaking, all the matzah you get, we assume that this has already been checked and it's baked, but maybe there's some little spot, and we know by matzah, chametz, even one little teeny bit could become chametz. So maybe the water touched the dough and that's it becomes chametz. So we're careful. Who came up with that? The Baal Shem Tov. But it was not only Baal Shem Tov.
Water on the matzah idea?
Yeah, that idea is from the Baal Shem Tov, even though I think he's not the first, but he enforced it with his students. And generally speaking, whoever follows the Baal Shem Tov and Chassidus follows that custom. And then there are Jews all over the world, very frum Jews, they don't follow that custom. However, on the 8th day of Pesach, we all eat the matzah and we allow it to get wet. So last day of Pesach, we're not so careful with this anymore. We allow it to get wet. That would be pretty good in itself. On top of that, the Rebbe said that he noticed that his father-in-law, the previous Rebbe, not only allowed the matzah to get wet, he made sure that it should get wet. And in fact, he ate matzah with every dish. He ate matzah with the fish, ate matzah with the dessert, ate matzah with the soup, ate matzah with the meat, to make sure that it gets wet every single time he's eating.
This one is the last day?
The last day. And the interesting thing is it's really shocking because here you're being so careful that you're not letting a drop of matzah, a drop of water touch matzah. What?
When it goes in your mouth, it gets wet.
In your mouth doesn't matter. In fact, in your stomach, it also gets wet. But once it goes into your mouth, it's over.
But what if I put like something liquid in my mouth and then the matzah?
We don't do that. We eat the matzah and then you take a drink. You don't put them in together, right? I know you're trying hard, but so it's interesting that here we're so careful that one drop doesn't get wet, and here we're doing the opposite. We're soaking the matzah in the soup, we're soaking the matzah in the fish, soaking it into the applesauce, and doing everything which is the opposite of what we do at all Pesach. And
So
what?
What's the reason for making sure you wet it?
Oh, that's the question. The fact that we're not so careful is the 8th day. I once heard, I think this is the general reason that's given. The general reason that's given is we want to show that even though all Pesach we were careful, but really we're not, God forbid, saying that if you have matzah become wet, it's actual chametz. We want to make a statement to let us know that we look at all other Jews with good eyes, and we're not saying that they're doing something wrong. So we're showing that we ourselves are doing the same thing, and we choose the last day of Pesach to show that. That's the reason that's given internationally, I think. But in Chassidus and in Chabad, there's a much deeper reason to it. So this is connected to another thing, and that is in the year 1906, the Rebbe Rashab surprised the yeshiva Bachrim, and he said he's going to eat this meal with the Bachrim together in the yeshiva. We know the Rebbe, our Rebbe, used to come to the dorm and give a bracha, but he didn't sit down to eat with the students. Here, the Rebbe Rashab came in and he sat down to eat with the students. And at that meal, he said that the students should all drink 4 cups of wine. And the 4 cups of wine, just like you drink the first night 4 cups of wine to represent going out of Mitzrayim, now we drink 4 cups of wine to represent going out of this golus. Of course, it's not the same. It's not a halacha. It's not an obligation. You don't make a bracha on each cup of wine, but it's a custom, and it's the same idea as going out of Egypt. Here, it's going out of golus. And in recent years, the Rebbe encouraged this custom and requested that we publicize it as much as we can. Men, women, children, everybody should drink 4 cups of wine. And the question is, what is this all about? Why do we drink 4 cups of wine? And why would it be okay for the matzah to become wet when we're being so careful? I want to show you how careful we are. You probably noticed that men, at the end of the meal, they wash mayim achronim. You know what mayim achronim is? You take a drop of water, you put it on the tip of your fingers, the tip of the fingers, and you move it over your lips, and that's called mayim achronim. On Pesach, Chabad doesn't do they do the mayim achronim, but not on the lips, because there might be a crumb of matzah on my lip, and now I'm touching with a crumb of water. And it's not a lake, it's not a river, just a little drop of water on the crumb of matzah. We're so careful. And here we're dipping it in and soaking it in them. It's like, it's a absolute contradiction. It's a paradox. How do we do both things? Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
That's true, yeah, okay.
Oh wait, why do women not do this?
I don't know. We'll leave that to the halacha teacher or Jewish home teacher. I don't know. Okay, so now I'm reading from this in the booklet. It's page 97, and it's Hayom Yom. I'm reading from the Hayom Yom. And I'm looking at the 22nd day of Nissan. Here's what I told you. It says, we'll read the English. The Baal Shem Tov used to eat 3 festival meals on Achon Pesach. The Baal Shem Tov called the 3rd meal on this day Mashiach's festive meal. Achon Pesach is a day for Mashiach's Suda because on this day the radiance of the light of Mashiach shines openly. These words give a whole new understanding of Achon Pesach. Now, I want to tell you a story that's found in the Sikh of the previous Rebbe. I did put it in the booklet, so those of you who could follow the Yiddish, fine. It's on page 98. But this is the story, and this is the source. And this story was publicized by the Frierdiker Rebbe in 1940, the first Pesach that he spent here on the soil of the United States of America. And the story is as follows. It was that same year, 1906, and they were sitting by the table, which is the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Rebbe of Chabad. His brother was there, and the Frierdiker Rebbe was there. And then the Rebbe Rashab turned to his brother and he said, do you remember what happened Pesach in the year 1865? What happened exceptional that year? He says, no, I don't remember. Maybe if you remind me details, it'll come back to me. So he told him the following story. Our father, their father was the Rebbe Marash, the fourth Rebbe of Chabad, was sitting by the table, and I guess it was Achon Pesach, and he said, today's Achon Pesach. So the Rebbe Rashab was a young boy, that year, 1865, he must have been 4 years old. And he asked his father, why is the last day a Yantov? This was his question. What's the Yantov today? The eighth day. So his father said to the other brother, do you know the answer? And he said, no. They had a sister, her name was Dvoraleya. And Dvoraleya, which was also a little young girl, she stood up and she said, I know the answer. So he said, okay, if you know the answer, tell me the answer. So she said like this, you know why it's a Yontif? Because Yidden work so hard. We work so hard for 7 days to keep Pesach, to not be careful with chametz. So when the last day of Pesach comes, we're so excited that Baruch Hashem, we succeeded in having a real nice kosher Pesach, and Hashem helped us that we didn't have any chametz and we ate the matzah, we did everything right. So therefore, we're celebrating that we merited to have a real, truly kosher Pesach with getting all the chametz out of our life. So our father said, after she said that, his response was, to Orleya, you have a very good head to think of such an answer. And then all of them went to the Tzemach Tzedek. He was the Rebbe at the time. That was their grandfather. And at the time, this was after the Rebbetzin of the Tzemach Tzedek had passed away. In fact, this was the last Pesach of his life. And the children would come there to help prepare the meal and do whatever they can do to help him. So when they came there, he told the Tzemach Tzedek at the table, this son, which was the Rebbe Rashab, asked, why is it a Yontif? My other son said, I don't know the answer. And little Dvoraleya, she said, the answer is because we're so happy that we didn't do anything wrong. So the Tzemach Tzedek had the same reaction when he heard her answer. And he said, her answer is a very good, logical answer. And if you come a little bit closer, I'll give you the deeper reason why it's the Yontif. He came a little bit closer. Again, he was weak, so he couldn't speak loud. And he said like this, the reason why it's called Achon Pesach is because, like I said before, it's not just the last day chronologically. Last in this context means figuratively. It's the end, the culmination, the completion. We finally reach the objective of the first day Pesach. And he said like this, the first night of Pesach is our Yontif, that Hashem took us out of Egypt. And this is the first redemption that happened through Moshe Rabbeinu. This was the beginning. Achon Pesach, which is the end, that is the Yontif. We're celebrating the future Geula, that Hashem will take us out of the future Gullus, this Gullus, through Mashiach. And Mashiach, he'll be this Redeemer. Moshe was the first Redeemer. He's the final Redeemer. So in a sense, the first day Pesach is Moshe Rabbeinu's celebration. The last day Pesach is Mashiach's celebration. That was his answer. In other words, what we're soon going to explain is that it's not just the day that we think about Mashiach, we focus on Mashiach. We'll soon get to understand that it means something about Mashiach is actually sort of shining in the world on that day. I'll soon explain. Just one more piece. Then the Rebbe Rashab said, you know why I asked you this question? How come I reminded myself? Because of the following incident. And he told the previous Rebbe, your two daughters, which are then, well, young girls. Who were the two daughters? One was our Rebbetzin Chaim Mushka. So she was at that time 4 years old. And the other was her sister Chana. She was the wife of the Rashag, the Rebbe's brother-in-law. And she was a year older. And they were both in the, he writes, in the library, the room where the Svarim are. And they had this debate between them. They had some sort of an argument, not an argument, but a debate, a dialogue. Chana and Mushka, that's what we called them. And I was listening to them. As I got closer, I heard the following. Chana said that Achron Shal Pesach is a Yantov like all Yom Tovim. And Mushka said, no, Achron Shal Pesach is not a Yantov like all Yom Tovim. The Rebbetzin said. And how do we know that? Because when you light candles on Achron Shal Pesach, you don't make the bracha Shechiyanu. You know, the last 2 days we don't say Shechiyanu. It's the only time. So when I heard this discussion between these two little girls, I reminded myself of the discussion between me and you when we were little children and our sister, and so on. So this is a story that happened with the Rebbe Rashab. The previous Rebbe spoke about it here, and then the Rebbe devoted a whole sikha to this as well. But what these two little girls were talking about. And what is it? Why don't we make a Shechiyanu? It's less of a yontif. It's not so much of a yontif. That's why people understand it on the surface, but there's a deeper reason. So let's go back now and explain. What's happening on Achron Shal Pesach is not just a day to think about Mashiach, to focus on Mashiach, but it means that this light, which is going to shine in the world when Mashiach comes, and that's going to change the whole world, there's one day a year that this light is shining now, not in the same way that it'll be shining then, but it's a manifestation of the light of Mashiach is shining now. I mean, to give you, to use the analogy, imagine if you have a room where there's a very bright light shining. It's 1,000 watts. It's a bright, bright light. But it's in a room and the room is locked. The doors are locked, the walls, there's no windows. And then someone goes ahead and makes a hole in the wall. Or there is a window, but it's covered and someone picks up the cover a little bit. And a little bit of that light, a crack, shines into the hallway. It's not what's in the room, but what's out of the room is really the light from inside is shining on the outer a little bit. On the day of Achron Shal Pesach, on the 8th day, Hashem made that the light which is going to shine when Mashiach is going to come, they're already shining now. We're getting a taste of it. And when is that? On the day of Achron Shal Pesach. So the difference between what I said before and I'm saying now is before I said today to think about Mashiach, to focus about Mashiach, this is much deeper. On this day, we're actually experiencing, and there's, in reality, it's actually happening that the light of Mashiach is already shining in a sort of smaller scale. And as a result of that, it's okay to dip the matzah into the soup. What's the connection? Why don't we dip the matzah into the soup? Because we're afraid it'll become chametz. One of the things that's going to happen when Mashiach comes is there'll be no more Yetzer Hara. There'll be no more klipa in the world. And there'll be nothing to be afraid of. Remember we said yesterday, for those who were here yesterday, that when they went out of Egypt, they ran. When we go out of times of Mashiach, we'll walk out slowly. What's the difference? When you have an enemy that you're afraid of, even if you defeat the enemy and you escape the enemy, but you still run because he might come after you again. But if the enemy is totally gone, there's nothing to run from. You can now walk slowly, calmly. There's nothing to be afraid. There's no more enemy. It doesn't exist. So basically, when he went out of Mitzrayim, the enemy still exists. It was just overpowered by the Kedusha. When Mashiach will come, there will be no more enemy because all the nations in the world will be transformed. All the klipa will be gone. So in a sense, we don't have to be afraid of chametz anymore because Now, with the light of Mashiach shining, there's nothing to be afraid of. So, of course, halachically, you're not allowed to eat chametz on the last day of Pesach. But where does it manifest? How does it manifest? That on this day, we're not concerned so much about the chametz, that this concern which we had the 7 days, on the 8th day, we're not worried. The light that's shining will protect us, that the matzah will not become chametz. If you don't understand, I could repeat it. If you have a question, you can ask it. If you have 4 questions, you can save it for Pesach.
Yeah, can you repeat it? Yeah.
Okay, where should I start with? Bereshis bara Elokim. I'm repeating it again. What I'm saying is that all Pesach long, we're afraid maybe there is some dough that's not baked, and I buy, not unintentionally, I'll be eating chametz. What we're saying is that on this day, there's a certain light of Hashem that's shining, a very bright spiritual light, and that light will protect us, that chametz will not come out of the matzah that I'm eating. Which light is it? Is the light that's going to be shining in the world when Mashiach comes. When Mashiach comes in the full sense, there'll be so much light shining. There won't be any more Yetzer Hara. There won't be any more Klippa. There won't be anything more to be afraid of because it's over. So now, it's not complete. So of course, we're still not allowed to eat chametz. But the fear that maybe this matzah will turn into chametz, so we trust that because the light of Mashiach is shining now, this will protect us and protect the matzah from turning into chametz. And protect, because it means it'll prevent chametz and klipa from coming into the picture because it's the light of Mashiach that's shining. Can I repeat one more time? Got it?
No, I got it.
Got it. Okay.
If that's the case, Rabbi,
Yeah.
how come we don't say like it's like a new energy that's coming down on that day, right?
Right.
So how come we don't say Shechianu?
Excellent. I forgot to conclude. So now, why don't we say Shechianu? So on the surface, it appears because it's less of a Yantov. What Rebbe Chaim Mushka was saying really was, you know why I don't say Shechianu? There's a halacha that you can only say Shechianu on something which you're actually enjoying now. Being that the objective of this Yantov is celebrating Mashiach, as long as Mashiach is not here physically, and we're not out of Golus physically, we can't make the Shechianu. True, spiritually it's there, but if the Yantov is about Mitzrayim, oh, that happened physically. We went out of Egypt already. We're out. We're free. But here we're celebrating the future. As long as it didn't happen, we can't make the bracha Shechianu. Which means when she said the words, it's not only Yantov like all Yom Tovim. On the surface, it sounds like she's putting down the Yantov. In reality, it's saying, no, it's something greater. It's about the future and about all the greatness we're waiting for in the future. And that didn't happen yet physically. As long as it doesn't happen physically in a way that it's concrete and we can see it with our eyes, we can't make the bracha Shechianu. You can think Shechianu, you can feel that way, but to make the bracha with Hashem's name, you need it to be there in front of your eyes, something which actually happened. This last part that I said, that was the Rebbe's explanation to the story, explaining what Rebbe Chaim Mushka said when she was 4 years old. So I think that up until this point, nobody knew this. This was something which was first revealed by the previous Rebbe, only first once he came to the United States of America. But it was never known before. People knew that it's a day connected to Mashiach, but I don't think people knew that the Tzemach Tzedek said these words, that the light of Mashiach is actually already shining on during these 24 hours of Achon Pesach. And Amir Hashem, on that day, I come to the dorm, we eat this meal together. I'll point out some more things. Practically speaking, I know you have enough time to forget everything I'm telling you, so I'll say it again later. Practically speaking, on that day, we drink 4 cups of wine. We wash, It's not a meal like a regular meal. We don't make kiddush. We don't need 2 matzahs, but we wash and we drink the 4 cups of wine, which means that this light of Mashiach that's shining, one of the ways of internalizing the light of Shabbos, the light of Yantov, of Rosh Hashanah, the light of Pesach, the light of Shavuos, the light of Sukkot, is when we eat a meal, according to Torah, by washing and drinking wine, these foods become like the channel through which the light of Hashem shines and is internalized into our physical body. When we make a bracha on the esrog and the lulav, it's more of a spiritual thing. When we actually eat foods, it actually penetrates the body by drinking wine on Shabbos or drinking wine on Yantov. So being that on this day there's a light of Mashiach, and we want that light to also not just penetrate my soul, but penetrate my body. So for that, we eat a meal. And on top of that, we drink the 4 cups of wine. In fact, the Rebbe was so specific about it that he said, if you drink the wine and you don't remember if when you drank it, you were thinking about Mashiach or not, you have a doubt, drink it again.
Oh no, I forgot about Mashiach.
You're looking for excuses, yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do we do this meal that 8th day if we went out of Mitzrayim even like before, like the first day of Pesach? Like usually we celebrate Pesach because there's like an energy from before we went out of Mitzrayim and everything. So like, why we don't do it the first day?
No, because the way it's set up is we need both. It's a process. The process begins with going out of Mitzrayim, and the process ends going out of this goes, right?
Right.
So therefore, we separate the Yantov also, that the first days of Yantov, we're celebrating mainly going out of Mitzrayim.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's considered that when the sea split, that was the completion of going out of Mitzrayim, because before they were still afraid of the Egyptians. They were running after them. Once the sea split and they were no longer a threat, that was the completion of going out of Mitzrayim, the 7th day. Now that that's sort of completed, we go to the 8th day, which is Mashiach. Okay, I'd like to wish everybody a kosher Freilich and Pesach. And again, if you meet anybody that says they didn't sell the chametz, what could they do? They're frantic, so just tell them to get in touch with me, and we'll make up where to get the papers to sign. And I hope the classes helped you get a little bit of a perspective on Pesach, on the Yantov, on the Matzah, on the wine, on everything else. And I hope more than that Mashiach comes before, and then we'll have much more to learn. Okay. Okay, all the best. Shabbos and Kosher Freilich and Pesach.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah.